Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yoma Daf Beis.
Mhm.
Shivas Yomim Korim Yom Kippur Mafrishim Kohen Gadol Mebeso Lishkas Parhedrin. 7 days before Yom Kippur, they would separate the Kohen Gadol from his house to a special office in the Beis HaMikdash because they wanted him not to become Tomei or other kind of problems. They wanted him, ready to go for Yom Kippur. They would even prepare another kohen to be like a vice kohen gadol in case Shema Yaralo Bapsus, in case he would become a Balkari or something else, to be a guy ready to step in on Yom Kippur to fill him in his place. Rabbi Yehuda, they would give him another wife. They would marry him off to another woman, that Shema Tamus Ishto, because maybe his wife would die on Yom Kippur, but you need to have a wife, because he has to atone for himself and his wife. Beso Zuishto. Amrullah, the Chachamim said no. What do you mean? But if you marry him after that wife, maybe that wife will die. If you marry him after two wives, they'll both die. So he says you can't cover all bases. It's not awesome. Shivas Yomim Kodim Sreifas Apora Yumafrishin Koina Sreifas Apami Beso. Same thing. 7 days before the Kohen Gadol would burn the Parah Aduma, there were 10 Parah Adumas burnt in history, each one by Kohen Gadol. And they would separate him also from his house, 7 days, Lilishka Shalpnei Abira, to an office that was on the Harabayis, Tzafon Mizracha, northeast. We'll see why. The Lishkas Beis Evan Isa Nikres. It was called the office of the stone. Lama Nikras Shmal Lishkas Beis Evan. Shekol Maseh B'Klei Glolim B'Klei Avonim B'Klei Adama. The utensils that were used there were all made out of stone or dung or dirt because they're not Mekabel Tuma, my time, huh? And because there's a special din by Parah Duma, Kivan the Tvul Yom Kosher B'Parah. Now, a Tvul Yom is somebody, let's say, who touched the nevela, touched the sheretz, he's tummy for 1 day, he goes to the mikvah. At that point is a Tvul Yom. Normally, a Tvul Yom can eat meiser, but you can't eat truma and kodshim. You have to wait till Herav Shemesh to eat truma and kodshim. But the din was, by Parah Duma, you could burn the Kohen Gadol could burn this Parah Duma even if he was a Tvul Yom. And this was a machlokas between the Prushim and the Tzdukim. It's not. The Chachamim went so far that every Kohen Gadol would come, they would give him a sheretz to hold. Now he becomes Tomei. Then they would dunk him in the mikveh. Now he's a Tvul Yom. And then they made him burn the parah. Lahotzi miliban shel tzdukim. This was to make sure that this Kohen Gadol was not a tzduki. Because the tzduki hayu oimrim, b'morovei hashemesh ha'isen nases. You cannot burn the parah adum unless you had hair of shemesh. The Prushim disagreed. Now, in Bayis Sheni, many of the Kohanic Gedolim were tzdukim. Like, in Bayis Rishon, there were 18 Kohanic Gedolim over the 400 years. In Bayis Sheni, there were like 350, because everyone would go into the Kodesh Kodashim and Kippur would die, because they were all Rishoim. Or many.
This means we would have had to have at least 350 paradumas. I thought there was only like a few paradumas, and that was if we kept watering down the ashes. And
okay, I said before there were 10 para adumas in history. The para aduma lasted until it didn't last anymore. So each Kohen Gadol didn't burn as a parah aduma. It would, if it lasted for hundreds of years, could be. But if the Kohen Gadol died, you have to appoint a new Kohen Gadol.
so they just used the mayafar.
They would use the ashes and rinse it and mix it with the water. There's a whole procedure, but they had enough ashes to last until the Bayis Sheni was destroyed. So since it looked a little bit like a zilzul regarding Tumah v'Tahara, that they made him become Tomei, actually, with a sheretz. So since there was a little zilzul, Takinu l'Rabbanan klei glolim klei avonim klei adamim d'lo l'kabel Tumah, that in the office where he worked, that 7 days, there were only stoneware, which are not mekabel Tumah, ki hechet lo zalzubos, so that there wouldn't, since Tvul Yom is kosher b'para, you might think that you don't have to be zoriz regarding Shmiras Tahara. No. They did a lot of milas, and we're going to learn more of them about the things they did because they were mizalz a little bit betuma. Now, Maishnat Tzefonim Mizracha, why was the office northeast? Because Kivan de Chatasi, Paraduma is called a Chatas. It says Lemei Nida Chatos He. Now, it's not a korban Chatas. You don't shech the Paraduma. But the Torah calls it a Chatas. The Chatas to Unitzafona, and a korban Chatas was offered in the north of the Azara, and Uksiv by El Nochach Pnei Ol Moed. You have to burn the parah in front of the Ol Moed, which you walk into the Ol Moed from the east. So Sakina l'Rabbanan Lishka Tzafona Mizracha. So the office where he was there for 7 days before burning it was placed northeast. Right? Ladashu, for some people would know that he was separated there, that he was going to do the paraduma, which is called a chatas, whose avoid is the mizrach. And that the whole Harabais is not called Bira. There was a certain place called Bira. No. The whole base of Migdash is called a Bira. Shenamar Habira Sharachinosi by David HaMelech. Now, Menon and Mili, that there is this concept that you have to separate the Kohen Gadol in advance of Yom Kippur. Amrav Man Yumi Bar Chilki, Amrav Machse Bar Idi, Amrav Yochanan, Amra Kra, Kasher Asa Bayom Hazeh, Tziva Hashem Lasos Lechaper Aleichem. This has to do with that Aaron and his sons went through 7 days of inauguration, the Shiva Yemei Miluim, prior to the inauguration of the Mishkan. So the Gemara Darshans, Lasois, Elu Masei Para, Lechaper Elu Masei Yom Kippurim. So the drasha is that for Lasois, which refers to Paraduma, you have to separate them, like they did by the Miluim. And Lechaper is Ma'aseh Yom Kippurim, that also requires a 7-day separation. Because they're also by the Miluim, Tziva Otam Lifrosh Mi Beisam Shiva Yomim, Shenamar Ufesach Ol Moed Teshvu Yomam V'Layla. For 7 days, Uvishmini Avdo, on the 8th day, they did the Avoda. Last week's Parsha, Shenamar Vahi Bayom Hashmini Korah. And then it says, Korvela Mizbeach, Kasher Tziva Lasos L'Doiros, Lifrosh Shiva, that this commandment to separate for 7 days was not just this one time only, but even there's going to be instances where they need to separate the coins for 7 days in front of a 1-day avoda. One of them is the burning of the parah, the other is Yom Kippur. So Bishma Kula Krabel Parah Lo Mitukim. Now I understand why that pasuk, the whole pasuk cannot be referring to the parah. Because lechaper ksiv, because it says kasher also v'yom hazeh tziva Hashem lasos lechaper aleichem, and the paraduma is not for kapar, it's for tahara. Ela ema kula krab yom kippurim ksiv, but maybe the whole pasuk refers to Yom Kippurim, and you don't need to do hafrasha 7 days before paraduma burning. Amri yalif tziva tziva. We learn Gzeira Shava ksiva tziva Hashem lasos by the miluim. Uksiv Hashem by the paraduma zois chukas hatoira. Asher tziva Hashem lemor. So that's referring to the para clearly. Malal para, afkan para. Therefore, the tziva in this pasuk of kasher asa bayom hazeh tziva, the tziva there is also referring to the parah. Umakan prisha and madoch here by the miluim, the Kohanim were mufrash for 7 days before they did the avodah. Aflahalon prisha, so the parah aduma also required 7 days of prisha. Oh, afraid the gemara v'emet tziva tziva diyom kippurim. Maybe the gzer shav is also only to Yom Kippurim and not to parah. The chsiv, it says by Yom Kippurim also by Yas Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe. Yeah, but that pasuk comes after the avodah. Done in Tziva Dilifnei Asiyah regarding the Miluim, Mitziva Dilifnei Asiyah regarding the parah. The ain't done in Tziva Dilachar Asiyah, Mitziva Dilifnei Asiyah. Right, the Kasher Tziva es Moshe by Yom Kippurim, that pasuk is written after all the korbanos. Freit the Gemara, the Eimat Tziva the korbanos. Maybe every time the Kohen is going to go to the base of Mikdash to do any avodah, maybe for a korban tzibur, for example, he has to be mufresh for 7 days. The chsiv beyond tzavoso es bnei Yisrael la'akriv es korbanehem, and that's a pasuk referring to Kohanim bringing korbanos. So the problem is tzavoso is not tziva. So the Gemara says danin tziva mitziva. We'd rather learn the gzer shava from paraduma to paraduma from the miluim, and not learn it to korbanos. Ain't done in tzavoso mitziva. Freik the Gemara might have kamina. What do we care that tziva tzavoso? It's close enough. In fact, the Hatanav of Rabbi Shmuel has learned a gzer shava from Vishava Kohen Uva Kohen. 2 different words. Zui Shiva, Zui Bia. It's the same thing. So the Gemara says, Ani Milecha Deleka Dedamile. You can make a Gzer Shava like that when there's no exact wording to compare to. Aval Hecha Deika Dedamile. When you have a choice to a pasuk and learn a Gzer Shava where it's Asher Tziva and Asher Tziva, Mitedamile Afinan. We would rather learn the Gzer Shava to the pasuk which has exactly the same word. Okay. We said that the pasuk's lechaper elu ma'aseh Yom Kippurim. The word lechaper told us that pasuk is referring to Yom Kippurim, and just like the miluim, they separate for 7 days, so they have to separate the coin for 7 days as well. Freit the Gemara ve'ema kapara the korbanos. Again, maybe from here, the kapara of lechaper refers to korbanos that every kohen has to do, and maybe when he comes to do the korban sibur to the base of Mikdash, he has to separate for 7 days. And for the Gemara, mi adinan hey kohen misrame, the boy leprisha. How would we know? Any kohen could do the avodah. So how would we know which kohen you'd have to separate? Freit the Gemara amri alam alot. Why not? Nivele prisha lekula b'shmeres beisav. We've already learned that there were 24 Kohanic families. Each Kohanic family was divided into 6 batei av, 6 sub-families. Each family worked Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 6 days, each one a day. So maybe every kohen in that Beis Av needs to separate for 7 days. So, and for the Gemara, donin davar shekavu lo zman, mi davar shekavu lo zman. The miluim, Yom Kippurim, the burning of the paraduma there's a special day that you do it. Lafuke korban is to call yuma isnu, but the korban tobit is offered every day. Freit the Gemara ve'ema regalim. Maybe it refers to the korbanos that were offered on the 3 shalosh regalim, which are tied to a day. So, and for the Gemara, donin davar shenoig pamachas b'shana, mi davar anoig pamachas b'shana. We're going to make a gzer shava only to those things that are done once a year. The miluim was only done once. Paraduma is done, once in a blue moon, and the Yom Kippur is done once a year. Lafuki regalim, the lav pamachas b'shana ninu. The regalim are 3 times a year, not once a year. Okay, ema regalachot. Maybe pick one yontif like Pesach, and on that yontif you have to separate for 7 days. Maybe you'll tell me v'chitem lo yadin heminayu. you won't know which yontif we're for. Ichag hamatzois, because hoilu pasach ba'kos of tchila. Where in all of the Tanakh, whenever it talks about the 3 Yomim Tov, it always talks about Chag HaMatzos first. Chag HaSukkos holim u'rubim mitzvasa. Sukkos has a lot of mitzvahs. Lulav, Sukkah, Nisach HaMayim. So maybe that's one. So Eladanin, Prisha Shiva Liyom Echad, Me Prisha Shiva Liyom Echad. All of these separations of 7 days are in front of 1 day event, like Yom Kippur, or the burning of the Paraduma. And they ain't done in Prisha Shiva L'Shiva, Me Prisha Shiva Liyom Echad. We're not going to learn separating 7 days for a 7-day event, because Pesach and Sukkot are 7 days event. Now, we could see, why didn't the Gemara ask about Shavuos, which is a 1-day event? So I don't know, but the Gemara doesn't ask that. But we don't learn it to 7-day Hafrosha from 1-day Hafrosha to 7-day Hafrosha, to 7-day Hafrosha prior to 7 days. So the Gemara says, Ema Shmini. So rather than jumping on Shavuos, it jumped on Shmini Atzeres, which is a 1-day Yontif, which is also would be the Prisha Shiva Liyom Echadu, and that would fulfill the criteria. And for the Gemara, Danin Davar She'en Kedusha Lefanav. So the day before Yom Kippur is a regular day. The day before the burning of the Paradum is a regular day. The day before the Miluim was a regular day. So Danin Davar She'en Kedusha Lefanav, Midavar She'en Kedusha Lefanav, Ve'in Danin Davar She'yesh Kedusha Lefanav, Midavar She'en Kedusha Lefanav. Shmini Atzeres has Kedusha in front of it, which is the 7 days of Chag HaSukkos. So that you can't make the drasha to Shmini Atzeres. Again, I would ask, you could learn to Shavuos, because Shavuos doesn't have a yontif before, the day before. Now, what the Gemara does ask says, what do you mean? V'lav kal v'chomer hu? Just the opposite. Should be a kal v'chomer. Meaning, hasha davar shein kedusha lefanav. Like Yom Kippur doesn't have kedusha in front of it yet. Boy prisha, you required separation. Davar sheyesh kedusha lefanav l'kol shekein certainly should require prisha. Of Shar Shelo, because it says Hayom Hazeh, Hazeh Ksiv, Kazeh. It's got to be definitely a day that, which is like the Miluim, which doesn't have kedusha in front of it. And Ravashi Arami Ikemidi the Ikka regular boy prisha Tafel Didei boy prisha. Ravashi rejects Shmini Atzeres because what do you mean? Shmini Atzeres is like an adjunct to Sukkot. Yes, it's got its unique characteristics, but it's still the 8th day of Sukkot. It's Tafel to Sukkot. So you're not going to have Hafrosha from a Yontif that is Tafel when you didn't do Hafrosha to the Iker Yontif. And even according to the Bandomer that says Shmini Atzeres is a Yontif in its own right, that's only Hanimili Le'inyan Pazer Kshav. We'll go into this more tomorrow. Okay, we're back into nice little